Good afternoon, Booktube. Welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Glenn. This is Glenn's Bookshelf, and today I'm going to talk about 4 hidden gems that I've read in the last couple of years and have been thinking about doing a video on for some time, but for whatever reason I just couldn't get around to pulling the trigger on them. It might be that I still feel a little awkward about doing book reviews, and so I think that I think I'm going to caveat this video and these books just by saying that I don't think I'm really doing full justice to any of them, but they were all good reads, and so I wanted to give them my recommendation and put that over the YouTube waves. And I guess I was kind of inspired to finally get around to discussing these books by a pair of videos. So I'm going to kind of call this video a response video. The first video I saw was by Shelly Swearingen, and she put out a video which I think part of the title is Hidden Gems, and so she talked about, I think, 4 books that she really liked a lot, but which she hadn't heard any other booktubers sort of in her, sort of corner of Booktube talk about, and so that kind of fits the, that's sort of how I would describe these books I'm going to talk about. And then Shelly's video, Mike from Bibliophile Bookscape, kind of responded to Shelly's video and kind of did his own list of 4 kind of hidden gems, and so I thought both of those videos kind of gave me an excuse to go ahead and talk about these 4 books that I am going to mention. Hope you'll pardon my attention. My cat I don't know what he has found, but he has discovered something that is just entertaining him. So anyway, one thing I'd like to say in the context of these books is, before Booktube came along, or before I really began using Booktube in a more sustained way, or daily, before Booktube was sort of part of my daily diet, I got a lot of my book recommendations from the Sunday New York Times book review section. And so 3 of the 4 books that I'm going to talk about are from the New York Times Sunday book review section. And so that's where some of these books come from. The other book was one I'd come across in one of my trips to Barnes & Noble, and it was kind of out with the other sort of new paperbacks in the front of the store. And I picked it up, and I thought it looked kind of interesting, but it didn't really quite, I didn't buy it right away. And so, but then I sort of kept seeing it, and then eventually I decided, it was worth taking a shot at. So one of these is from Barnes & Noble's. One of these I found at Barnes & Noble, and the other 3 I got from, based on reading the New York Times book review. So anyway, finally, enough chit-chat and background and stuff. I'm going to start with the book that I think is probably the most interesting of the 4, and it's possible that you have heard of this. This is Biography of X by Catherine Lacey. Catherine Lacey is the author of a couple different books, but this is the only book of hers that I have read. I think she's a really interesting writer. The this book is a kind of multi-layered book. It is an alternative history. That's sort of the background of the book, in which I think during World War II or right after World War II, some of the southern states break away from the Union again and form a kind of Handmaid's Tale theocracy, which in the writing of this book is sort of falling apart, and during which the southern states are sort of coming back into the Union again, but the relationship between sort of the northern states and some of these southern states is not completely worked out yet. It's a pretty fascinating alternative history in a lot of ways. The author will reference, there's lots of like footnotes in it that reference either actual historical figures, or I just sort of made up magazine articles and things like that. It's pretty interesting, but let me read the synopsis on the back. It says, when X, an iconoclastic artist, writer, and polarizing shapeshifter, falls dead in her office, her widow, CM, hurls herself into writing a biography of the woman she deified. On a quest to find out where X was born, CM instead opens a Pandora's box of secrets, betrayals, and destruction. All the while, she immerses herself in the history of the Southern Territory, a fascist theocracy that split from the rest of the country after World War II, and which finally in the present day is being forced into an uneasy reunification. A masterfully constructed literary adventure complete with original images assembled by X's widow, Biography of X follows CM as she traces X's peripatetic trajectory over decades and through her collaborations and feuds with everyone from Bowie and Waits to Sontag and Acker. At last, when she finally understands the scope of X's defining artistic project, CM realizes her wife's deceptions were far crueler than she imagined. Pulsing with suspense and intellect while blending nonfiction and fiction, Biography of X is a roaring epic that plumbs the depths of grief, art, and love. So, yeah, at the beginning of the book, towards the beginning of the book, this character X dies, or we're reported that this woman X has died, and so her widow, also a woman referred to as CM, sets out to try to learn more about her wife, and part of it is driven by the fact that someone else has written a biography of X, and CM is had sort of a contentious reaction to that, and so she sets about to write her own. And it's kind of what's kind of fascinating is CM. The book is told through the first person, and it's X's wife CM, and I mean, she's kind of an unreliable narrator, so that makes this book kind of fun too. But it's very intricate. CM goes to different places in the country. It's not clear whether X was from the Southern Territory or born there. And so she investigates that, and also goes out west where X was reported to have lived. And so CM ends up sort of, retracing the life of X, and it's just a pretty fascinating read. And I knew when I read the book review that this was the kind of book that I think I would really like, and I did. So yeah, hearty recommendation for Biography of X by Catherine Lacey. Second book I also got from the New York Times Book Review is Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. Rachel Kushner, I think, has written 2, possibly 3 books. I have another book of hers It was an earlier book called The Flamethrowers, which I just haven't quite been able to get into, but I really did like Creation Lake. Creation Lake came afterward. And the front cover of my edition says that this book was shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2024, if you care about such things. So this is Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner, and it tells the story of a woman who is kind of an intelligence specialist in the security field and it sounds like she previously worked for the U.S. government in some sort of spy counterintelligence capacity. At the time of this story, it sounds like she is in the employ of a corporation, so she's sort of freelancing. And so she has been hired to go to France to investigate and go undercover into this kind of shadowy anarchist, environmental extremist group that is suspected of doing eco-terrorism. And so the main character is responsible for finding out more about this group, and there's a sort of additionally shadowy kind of guru person who has some relation to this group, and it's not clear if he's sort of pulling the strings or if he's just kind of a marginal figure. And so this woman goes over to France and gets herself undercover with this group, and it sounds as if, like she is either charged with trying to uncover this group's nefarious purposes or to instigate some sort of action whereby the government and the corporation can put down this group. And kind of throughout the book, it's one of the sort of mysteries about it is it's not really clear. There's a lot of things in the story that you can kind of get the sense that things are not what they appear to be, or just sort of what the circumstances and the nature of the people in the group that the woman has gone to investigate. It's all a little mysterious, but also quite a bit of it is, there is some tension. Like, is this woman is her undercover role going to get found out? And, is she going to be, put in harm's way? That sort of thing. Even though she's quite capable of taking care of herself, there is, reading the book did make me sort of, kind of anxious on this woman's behalf. And it's a book that was also told in the first person. So heartily recommend Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. The third book is this is the third one that I got off of the New York Times book review section. It is The Adult by Bronwyn Fischer. And I think this is Bronwyn Fischer's first book. I believe she is a Canadian author, and the book is set in Canada. And it is a kind of coming-of-age story for a freshman young woman, Natalie, who is just starting college. Her parents kind of run a sort of campground, in a more rural area, mountainous area. And kind of sounds like this is sort of her first time sort of in a larger urban setting. And the main, plot line of the story is Natalie is gay or suspects that she is, and on a I don't know if it was on a class field trip or on a later trip into the park, she meets this kind of mysterious older woman, and they kind of slowly get to know each other and eventually swap contact information. And then Natalie sort of a couple times runs into this woman in different places around town, and eventually a relationship starts up. And Natalie has not communicated to any of the people that she has, any of the students that she hangs around with, that she is gay. And so she is, the other students sort of get wise that she is in a relationship, but Natalie is sort of cagey about who it's with, and because she doesn't want to out herself at this stage, she invents a male lover who she names Paul. And so, part of the book is she is, kind of navigating this this secret relationship and kind of compartmentalizing her life away from her fellow students in the dorm that she lives in. And all the while she is I'm not sure if she is supposed to be an English or poetry major, but she ends up taking a poetry class, and the professor of the poetry class is someone that Natalie just calls Jones, assumedly just her, the professor's last name. Which was sort of interesting too. And so Natalie is sort of navigating this new romantic relationship with an older woman, and exploring and making friends in her first year in college, and of course navigating her coursework. It's mostly kind of a lighthearted and sort of good-natured telling of the story. The mood of the book is mostly, a little bit mysterious, but lighthearted and generally good-natured. Although, as the book goes on, we come to suspect that maybe this woman that Natalie has formed a relationship is also sort of keeping secrets, and so those, so that's sort of the path of where the book is going. And so Natalie will have to figure out how to deal with, with these sort of secrets that come out, and just how she will handle her new experience as an adult, or the adult, as the book title says. So again, I heartily recommend The Adult by Bronwyn Fischer. This was also a pretty new release. 2023 is when it was published. So the fourth book is the book that I discovered when I, just by going to Barnes and Noble and flipping through the books on their display tables. This is Lazy City by Rachel Connolly. And this is probably the hardest book of the four to define. There's less of a plot line, so to speak, but kind of like The Adult, the story revolves around a young woman who I think in the book is probably in her early 20s, and is either still in college or has just gotten out of college, and she has an uneasy relationship with her mother. And sort of early in the book, we are just given some small details that this young woman has left college because or at least partly because there was a tragedy at the college. One of her friends died under, perhaps mysterious circumstances. And so she leaves college and goes home she ends up taking a position as a nanny. And then the story, kind of involves her kind of getting in touch with old friends and meeting some new ones. I'll read you the synopsis from the back. It says, back home after abruptly leaving graduate school in London, Erin numbly teeters through the shock of losing her best friend to an accident she doesn't want to talk about, especially with her mother. But it's easy to slip into the rhythms of Belfast, the lazy city. She takes an au-pair job and bookends her days with early morning runs along the Lagan and hazy afters at a bar her old friend tends. In quick succession, she meets an American man who was looking to get lost and falls back in with a local boy who both comforts and confounds her. But it is her unlikely, secretive relationship with Faith that offers a different kind of sanctuary. Wandering into empty churches, gazing with mascara-smudged eyes at the stained glass windows, Erin finally gingerly confronts herself. So it's kind of a coming-of-age story for a young woman. The hook that kind of got into me was the intersection with religion and possible, spirituality, and just the ambiance of churches, and how I was looking forward to see how this woman sort of navigates all of that and how she ends up developing throughout the book. But I liked it. It's not super dramatic or action-packed, but I enjoyed this character and was kind of invested in her and wanted to see how things went, and sort of mourned with her through some of the dramatic relationship issues and conflicts she runs into, and of course the uneasy relationship she has with her mother. So again, I also recommend Lazy City by Rachel Connolly. This came out in 2023. So yeah, most or all these books were books that have come out, I think, in at least the last 3 years. So that is my contribution to Shelly Swearinger's video, and also to Mike's video, and I will link to those down in the description. But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by, and I look forward to coming back to you again soon with another video. Thanks. Bye-bye.